Well, hi everyone, David Cross again with you. I have found something new and interesting that I wanted to share with you, and it is primarily the automation platform n8n, which is an orchestration platform that has a number of connectors and built in processes and seems to be well introduced and well used in the European areas, and I've seen with a couple of other major account names, but the idea here is that they've introduced an AI agent, and kind of what I've been working through is interfacing this n8n to IPControl using the HTTP request node, and to tell it to, through AI and OpenAI, to format the inputting request to the JSON format required, and then to run the import and respond back via email, and to have an email trigger that I can send an email or do a chat to provide this type of functionality. So, one of the things I'll kind of go through here first is that when we go through the AI agent, and if you're familiar with LLMs and configuring the prompts and so forth, I've defined my prompt through this AI agent, which then allows us to set up different trigger types. So I can either use the connected chat trigger, which I'm doing here, or I can go and define another type of trigger to specify the inputting format. I can also specify the output format and use a specific JSON structure, which I won't do here because I just kind of wanted to return everything. But in the system message, I'm setting up the prompt that tells it basically it's an address management assistant or attendant. And then it accepts the incoming request, looks for these particular fields and values for these fields, and then is to complete this JSON format, which is the simplest format of the import device API. What I then wanted to do is to format that output and include all the fields, return it in the resulting property, and then the tasks in this prompt is to run the invoke and import IP, passing the import JSON, and then to, when it's ready, because it needs to wait for this response to come back before it sends off that email, and to continue to wait for it and then send the results back with the chat details and also with the import JSON. So, effectively doing everything we need, formatting it, and trying to use some, basic language, English language, to perform the task. So this n8n then takes this agent and allows us to connect various chat models, which I'm connecting in GPT-4o Mini, and I set up an account so that it uses and connect to it through API, and deposit about $25. So this is a kind of a pay for service here, but you get very minimal results on some of the free things, and most of these are, they're going to show you are going to be paid services. Now you can also use a local LLM, which I've done. Unfortunately, my environment's not scalable to the point to use this functionally. So I'm using OpenAI. But you can pick and choose which of these AI models you have, and n8n allows you to do that effectively through adding the prompts here. So you can go out and do AI, and you can pull in the different types of agents and different types of integrations. And this is kind of the value of it that I see of all of the pre-built components. So this OpenAI chat model then is going to chat with this AI, format the request. I'm then going to use a simple memory. I'm going to save 100 of the context, but typically this is built into either a Postgres or a Mongo or some type of data storage if you want to recall the memories and or use that context in different requests. I then have an import request, which is tied directly to one of my CAA workflows. So I have a workflow here called AI add IP, and I'll go up here and look at it, and we'll pull this up. And in that workflow, I'm going to accept basically the minimum necessary to import this IP address. So effectively, we'll go take a look at this AI add IP. I think it might be at the end here. Let's see. Okay, yep. So it's on the end of my flows here, and I have basically a post called AI add IP. And when the input comes in, I'm going to accept that payload, back it up, create a new one. I'm then going to use a predetermined set of user credentials. Now, I don't want my auto AI to have those credentials or have to go and look them up or do things with it, although it can. But what I'm doing here is just specifying it as a pre-built-in type service user, and I would use maybe like a WF admin or some other type of workflow in this case. But because we need import permissions, it needs to be a user with sufficient abilities, to set. So the IPC login then is going to handle all the token login. It's then going to set up the payload, back it up, copy everything, build the request headers that we're going to need to make the HTTP request, and then finally it's going to make the HTTP request to import the IP address. Now I could go and use a node here, but I'm just doing the request, so I can simplify it and control this a little bit better. But in the result of this, if I get a header 200, it tells it okay, it then tells it here's the IP address that I want to go get, and it does a get of that IP address, returning it back to the AI that then formats that structure and sends off the email address. Now, I also had a Swagger request in here, so I could pull some Swagger details, but that won't be used. But within this context, then, we should be able to go up here and do a chat, and we should be able to use some structured data to do that. And so I'm going to go see if I can find some of that structured data real quick and paste that in there. And I've tried to make it as simple as possible so that all you would need to do is specify the values in the fields, or the fields in their values, and then your email address where you want it to send it off. So here in mine, I need to put a number on this. It kind of undoes this while I do it. And we'll tell the specifications, set the following fields. This is going to tell us the import, and then the instruction is to effectively email it off to my account. So now when this runs, you can see it actively interacting with the AI, formatting what it needs to perform based on the instruction I gave it. It ran the import request, so it gave us the IP address, and now it's formatting the response, and we should now get an email. And this should be sent then off to my email user, specified in the list, and all of the results for it. So all I had to do is just paste this in the email or paste it in the chat, and it'll go off and do this. Now, the way I envision this, because the way I see that this would really end up working, especially through a chat, is that we would need to identify some flag like a user-defined field and tell it, I want to go in and add for VLAN 123, and I don't know any other details, go get the IP and subnet. And it should be able to go out through AI, get the subnet that it requires, pull the details necessary, and then import it through the IP address, and do all of that without interaction of the user specifying anything more than the plain syntax language of what it wants to do. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so this is something I've been working on just kind of in the off time, a little bit over the weekends. Very, very similar to Node-RED, but it's very complex as well. It's not, to me, as simple because I like to get into the low coding versus the no coding portion. So in terms of that, one of the things they do in terms of the node, they do have the ability to go in and set up a code function that you can run and manipulate the data or do something with the input and output. Now, what I'm using this for is telling it to go out that in the email, when I receive an email, that I wanted to format it exactly as I do the chat. So I set the chat input to the same data and structure, and I use everything exactly the same as I do, substituting the mail input and the body of the mail subject to this chat input. So that's one of the things there. And then secondly, I found, and you're going to find that if you're doing self-hosting like I am, and I'm using a Docker image, that some of the features are disabled, of course. They want you to subscribe, and n8n is relatively expensive, beyond my means for a lab at least. But for what I see on site, it looks very impressive. So if any of you out there are using n8n, if you're building projects on that, if you also have IPControl and or QIP, because our CAA does both for Vital QIP and also IPControl, the CAA and interaction with that and the n8n might be a great combination. Might be a perfect way to allow you to set up some automation, open up those requests, or even have ServiceNow do that type of interface. And effectively anything could post data or send requests via email. Maybe set up a email template or form, and I'm going to kind of look at that next. And then also, I just want to kind of point out some other things while we're here, is that they do have some other means for like forms. So they give you the ability to set up form requests that we can go in and mock, setting up your change requests and the other information here. And this is going to do the same thing that the other flow did. So I can go in and set up the same information. Apologize when I'm typing here. And from this, have it post into the subnet itself, and then do the same thing and just give us an address and mail it off. 528, and I want to send this again off to David Cross at signallabs.com. And here we go. So submit. And then you'll see in the form, this will go out and execute this. It's going to run and send an email off. Now, it looks like my email couldn't deliver it to this user here, so I typed it wrong. That's why. But in the form output, it's a great, simple little form that just gives you an assignment. And it gives you the details that you can set up your own output and structure. So when I go out here to this return form, I can make this look like anything I want. I can drag and drop fields onto the completion meshes and give it some type of time. I can tell it to limit the wait time. And there's other options that you can tell it to complete as well. Even custom form styling if you want to put your logos and branding in. And then from the HTTP request node, when you're kind of looking at these from a debug, you see the left-hand input. So it's a nice little debugger, shows you here's what's coming in. You can also pin this. So if you don't want to keep rerunning this, or if it has to go out and make calls to API or do something else that might have a bit bucket or cost to it, you may not want to do that. So you can pin this data and reuse it over and over in the testing. I found that extremely useful and very similar to the inject node that we use when we're dealing with Node-RED. And then on the output, it gives you that ability to execute it as well. And I thought very cool too that you could take an import curl command. So I could take any one of my APIs and formulate the curl, or even take a API, format it in curl, import it, and it'll set up the request node according to that curl command. That's nice as well. So in that HTTP request node, then it's building out the form, and then you can edit fields. So if you want to change the field mappings or the names and columns and things like that, you can. There are all types of conversions to files, which I'm doing to an XML. And because I put this in there there's an error, which I would then go up and, most likely specify an error flow, which is kind of outside the scope of this. So everybody, that's, high level of this. I'm just dabbling. I'm getting into the n8n. I'm seeing how the flow coding works and, how I can use this, but I'm more interested in the automation aspect of this, the accuracy of the prompting, and what it's going to take to ensure that every single time, not 99% or 95%, 100% of the time, it processes the exact same way, shape, form, and format as it should. And that's where I am finding a difficult time. But having the right prompts, having the right format, and ensuring this in testing, I think is resulting really well in types of, in terms of results. So that's what I wanted to point out today, and I'm going to be coming back with this and probably setting up more n8n flow examples, but I may do it on a different channel or something. But I just want to highlight that here, because I think it's really a cool program, and it's not that we want to replace in terms of the cloud automation appliance or other automation tools. I think they can all be complementary. I think they all have a place, and where you can simplify the HTTP request nodes for the n8n, I think you'll find value in the CAA and having that ability versus trying to interact natively with APIs that sometimes require multiple complex flows. So you may see another video, and this may be expanded out to 15 different requests, telling it to go out and get the subnet, get the container, get all of the user-defined, get it that data that it needs to formulate the response and import, and then different models. And then I want to go through maybe in the future, some chat examples that would allow you to set up a real-time automation chatbot, and then go back and interactively back and forth, say, I want to add a site, have it do all the site templates. When the site's done, okay, I want to do this, deploy the, DHCP, and kind of interact with it to, tell it in its instruction versus having to, go through the application or APIs, etc. Make it a little bit more interactive, either by, your end user client or by your technicians, copy and paste, things like it. All right. Well, thanks for joining me. And again, if you have any comments about n8n, or if you started looking at it in your company, or if you're interested more in this, let me know and give me some ideas and thoughts, and I'll get back to you and we'll start building out this new system. Thanks again, and good luck with everything, and we'll talk to you soon.